Welcome to G Fun Facts Online, where we deconstruct the big ideas shaping our world. Today, we're talking about something that is as old as humanity itself, but is happening now on a scale we've never seen before: migration. Humanity has always been on the move. From our earliest ancestors venturing out of Africa to explorers crossing vast oceans, moving is in our DNA, but the 21st century is different. We're witnessing a global surge in movement, a kind of human tide, pulling millions of people across continents. This isn't random. It's a powerful current driven by a complex mix of forces. As of early 2024, a staggering 117.3 million people were forcibly displaced from their homes. And millions more are choosing to move for reasons that are just as compelling. To understand this phenomenon is to understand the biggest challenges and opportunities of our time: inequality, conflict, a changing planet, and the universal, timeless search for a better life. So what are the engines driving this incredible human tide? We're going to break down the four biggest drivers: the economy, society, politics, and the environment. Let's start with the biggest engine of them all: the economy. At the heart of most migration stories is a simple, powerful calculation. The world economy is a landscape of stark contrasts, deep valleys of poverty right next to towering peaks of wealth. And this imbalance fuels the single greatest driver of migration: the quest for prosperity. The most powerful push factor is the huge gap in economic well-being between nations. Think about this. Unskilled workers in wealthy countries often earn wages that are 10 times higher than people doing the same job in developing countries. Economists call this the place premium, the idea that your location can matter more for your income than your skills. For a migrant moving from a developing country to the United States, research shows the real wage gap can be a factor of almost 6. For some countries, it's over 16 times higher. That isn't just a raise. It's a life-changing amount of money, creating a powerful and logical reason to move. In this light, migration becomes one of the most effective poverty reduction tools an individual can access. But it's not always the poorest of the poor who make the journey. International migration costs money: for travel, for fees, for setting up a new life. So often, it's people from the lower middle and middle income brackets who have both the strong incentive to leave and just enough resources to do it. This creates a strange paradox. Sometimes, when a poor country starts to develop, its emigration rate actually goes up at first because more people can finally afford the ticket out. Another huge economic driver is demographics, specifically something called the youth bulge. In many parts of the world, especially sub-Saharan Africa and the Middle East, there's a huge generation of young people entering the workforce. But if there aren't enough jobs for them, you get high youth unemployment. In 2016, there were 71 million young people unemployed globally. For them, seeking work abroad isn't just an option, it's a necessity. This creates a global labor flow. As of 2022, over 2/3 of all international migrant workers were concentrated in high-income countries, often filling labor shortages in sectors like agriculture, construction, and care services that native populations might not want. This flow of people leads to one of the most hotly debated topics in migration: the brain drain. This is the idea that a developing country loses its most educated and skilled people, like doctors and engineers, to wealthier nations. This can obviously be damaging, depleting the human capital needed for a country to grow. But a more nuanced view has emerged, suggesting a, quote, brain gain. The mere possibility of migrating for a better job can incentivize more people back home to get a higher education or learn valuable skills. A fascinating study on India's IT sector found that increased access to H-1B work visas in the US didn't just help the migrants. It actually boosted IT employment inside India by nearly 6%, as more people rushed to get the training. Plus, these migrant networks facilitate trade, investment, and knowledge transfer back home. And that brings us to the most direct economic benefit for origin countries: remittances. This is the money that migrants send back to their families. And the numbers are mind-boggling. In 2019, officially recorded remittances reached $548 billion. To put that in perspective, that is more than 3 times the amount of all official development aid given by governments worldwide. For countries like Tonga and Haiti, these financial flows make up 30 to 40% of their entire economy. This money is a direct lifeline. It pays for food, health care, and school fees. Studies show that a 10% increase in the share of international migrants in a country's population can lead to a nearly 2% drop in the number of people living in extreme poverty. It's a powerful force for development, all sent home, one person at a time. But it's not all about money. Migration is a deeply social decision. The ties of family, community, and culture stretch across borders, creating powerful channels that guide people's journeys. The most important of these social drivers is migrant networks. Having family, friends, or community members already living in a destination country dramatically lowers the costs and risks of moving. They provide crucial information about jobs and housing, and a vital support system upon arrival. The impact is huge. Researchers using large-scale mobile phone data found a direct link. The probability of a person moving to a specific destination roughly doubles as the number of their social contacts in that destination doubles. Basically, people move to where they know people. And social media has put these networks on steroids, allowing for instant sharing of information and maintaining strong bonds across thousands of miles. The desire to be with family is another fundamental driver. Family migration, which includes reuniting separated families or forming new ones, makes up a huge portion of global movement. In 2023, family reasons accounted for 43% of all new permanent migration to wealthy OECD countries. That's 2.5 million people moving to be with their loved ones. This often creates chain migration, where one family member moves first, establishing a foothold, and then helps relatives follow over time. And finally, there's the pursuit of knowledge. We're living in the age of the, quote, global classroom. The number of students studying outside their home countries has exploded, from about 600,000 in 1975 to over 6.3 million in 2020. The reasons are clear: access to better quality education, prestigious universities, and the career boost that comes with an international degree. For students from developing countries with limited university capacity, studying abroad can be the only path to advanced training. And for host countries, international students are an economic and intellectual boon, bringing in billions in tuition fees and representing a pool of high-skilled talent that might stay and contribute after they graduate. While economic and social factors often involve a choice, our next set of drivers often leave people with no choice at all. Political upheaval and environmental change can turn migration into a desperate act of survival. War is one of the most brutal and direct drivers of forced migration. The Syrian civil war, which began in 2011, created one of the largest displacement crises of our time, forcing millions to flee for their lives. Many found refuge in neighboring countries like Turkey, which now hosts the world's largest refugee population at 3.6 million. Similarly, decades of instability in Afghanistan have generated waves of refugees. The recent conflict in Sudan that began in April 2023 displaced over 3.3 million people in just the first few months. Beyond open war, people flee persecution based on their ethnicity, religion, or political beliefs. Authoritarian regimes that crush dissent create an environment of fear that forces citizens to seek asylum elsewhere. And it's not just governments. In the Northern Triangle countries of El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras, widespread gang violence and extortion have made life unbearable for many, pushing them on dangerous journeys north. There's also a more subtle political driver: poor governance. Widespread corruption and a weak rule of law can destroy economic opportunity. and erode any trust between citizens and their state. In fact, some research suggests that dissatisfaction with public services and corrupt governance can be an even stronger motivation to migrate than simple poverty. Corruption is a powerful push factor because it creates a system where success depends on who you know, not what you know, prompting people to seek a more just society. One study found a direct link. A 1-unit increase in a country's corruption level is associated with an 11% increase in people leaving. And now, a new and powerful force is entering the picture, reshaping the map of human movement, our changing planet. The impacts of climate change are already threatening livelihoods and displacing millions. We see it in sudden, shocking disasters. In 2023 alone, disasters like floods, storms, and wildfires were responsible for 26.4 million new internal displacements. But potentially more consequential is the slow creep of environmental change. Things like desertification, rising sea levels, and land degradation gradually undermine farming and fishing. This isn't a sudden shock, but a slow-motion crisis. A sobering report from the World Bank estimates that without serious climate action, up to 216 million people could be forced to move within their own countries by 2050 because of these slow onset impacts. This brings us to a crucial concept: mixed migration. The reality for many people on the move is that their reasons don't fit into one neat box. A single group crossing a border might include a refugee fleeing war, an economic migrant seeking a job, and a farmer displaced by drought. A person who leaves for economic reasons might become a victim of trafficking along the way, making them a refugee in need of protection. This complexity challenges our traditional legal categories and is one of the biggest puzzles for modern migration policy. So with all these people on the move, what is the impact on the countries they leave and the countries they arrive in? The effects are profound and complex. For host countries, immigration is a powerful force for change. Migrants fill crucial labor shortages, both in low-wage jobs and in highly skilled fields. They are often more entrepreneurial, starting businesses at higher rates than native populations. And in countries with aging populations, they are essential for sustaining social security systems. An analysis of 14 wealthy countries found that a 1% increase in immigration increases total GDP by about 1%, without negatively affecting the average wages of native workers. Of course, integration has its challenges, and debates around cultural differences and resources are common. But over the long term, the evidence often points to a neutral or net positive economic and fiscal impact. For the countries of origin, the story is also a double-edged sword. The most obvious cost is the brain drain. But as we've seen, this is balanced by the massive inflow of remittances, the creation of powerful diaspora networks that link the home country to the global economy, and the potential for a, quote, brain gain. The ultimate outcome often depends on whether the origin country can create an environment that harnesses these benefits and, perhaps, entices its skilled citizens to one day return. In the end, the human tide of the 21st century is not a crisis to be stopped, but a fundamental feature of our interconnected world that needs to be understood and managed. The forces behind it, economic gaps, family bonds, political conflict, and a changing climate, are deep-rooted and here to stay. Migration is a collection of millions of individual stories of hope, desperation, and incredible resilience. There are no easy answers, but navigating this tide requires more than just policies. It requires empathy and a recognition of the shared humanity that connects all of us, whether we choose to stay or we are forced to go. Thanks for tuning in to G Fun Facts Online.